at the narrowest point of the Strait of Hormuz, at exactly 2:52 p.m. in bright and open daylight, with clear skies and perfect visibility. The guided missile destroyer USS Mason was slowly escorting the massive American oil tanker Pacific Endeavor through waters that Iran claims as its own, even though the world recognizes them as international waters. And this was part of a routine freedom of navigation mission meant to show that no country has the right to block global shipping. But the calm surface of the sea was hiding a storm, because suddenly Iranian radar systems along the northern coastline locked onto the USS Mason, tracking its speed, direction, and every small movement, while 6 anti-ship missile batteries became active almost at the same moment. 12 fast attack boats rushed out of Bandar Abbas at high speed, cutting through the waves, and 3 missile-armed corvettes began moving in from different angles, all of it happening in plain sight under the afternoon sun, making Iran's message very clear that this tanker would not be allowed to pass, and this American destroyer was expected to be destroyed. Because from Iran's point of view, this was the perfect place to strike, a narrow choke point where one U.S. warship was boxed in by land-based missiles on one side and fast attack boats on the other, leaving no easy way out. And their plan was simple and brutal: hit the destroyer with many attacks at once, overwhelm its defenses, sink it in Iranian-controlled waters, capture the survivors, take the oil tanker, and turn the whole event into a massive political and military humiliation for the United States. But what Iran did not know was that they had badly misread the situation, because below the surface 3 American submarines were quietly tracking every Iranian movement, a powerful U.S. carrier strike group led by the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower was only about 60 miles away with 48 fighter jets ready to launch at a moment's notice. And high above the CB-1B bombers were already watching every missile battery from the sky, while even the oil tanker itself was not just a civilian ship, but also carried 12 Marine Force Recon operators hidden below deck, ready for anything. So when Iran believed it was about to destroy a single lonely warship, it was actually walking straight into the biggest American naval response the Persian Gulf had seen in decades, in a waterway that is only about 21 miles wide at its narrowest point, yet carries nearly 20% of the world's oil every single day, more than 30 million barrels flowing through this narrow corridor that Iran has tried to control for years by making threats to close it and cripple the global economy. Threats that had recently become more serious when Iran deployed new Chinese-made anti-ship missiles along the coast, increased naval patrols, and ordered its fast attack boats and missile ships to behave more aggressively toward American vessels. Which is why the United States responded by continuing to send destroyers and escorts through the strait to show that international waters remain open to everyone. And earlier that morning, at 10 a.m., USS Mason had received its mission to protect the Pacific Endeavor and safely guide it through the strait while defending against any Iranian aggression. Even though Captain Sarah Mitchell, the commanding officer, knew how dangerous the situation had become and warned her crew over the ships loudspeakers that Iranian forces would be watching them closely, and that daylight meant every move could be seen, telling them this was not just a normal patrol, but a combat zone where anything could happen. And although she did not share every detail, intelligence reports had already suggested that Iran was planning something serious. So when the USS Mason and the oil tanker entered the Strait of Hormuz around 11:30 a.m. under the bright sun, and were quickly picked up by Iranian coastal radar that began tracking and calculating firing solutions from shore, and when 12 fast attack boats later launched from Bandar Abbas at high speed, racing toward the narrow shipping lane with missiles on their decks, it became clear that what was unfolding was not just another tense standoff, but the opening moments of a dramatic confrontation that would soon pull in air power, naval forces, and hidden reinforcements in a way Iran never expected. As the missile corvettes, which were larger Iranian warships filled with heavy weapons, left their harbor and moved into intercept positions where American surveillance aircraft could clearly see them from above, USS Mason went to full battle readiness. And at 2:35 p.m. Captain Mitchell received an urgent message from U.S. Central Command telling her that Iranian missile batteries were active, attack boats were moving in, corvettes were closing, and an attack was about to happen, while also informing her that American aircraft were launching, and that she was fully allowed to defend the ship and protect the tanker at all costs. So Captain Mitchell immediately ordered all hands to battle stations and told her crew that this was not a drill and that Iranian forces were now approaching on radar and by sight. And although USS Mason was one of the most advanced destroyers in the U.S. Navy, with powerful radar, long-range interceptor missiles, cruise missiles, a large deck gun, and close-in defense systems, the threat it was facing was extreme because 6 missile batteries, 12 attack boats, and 3 missile ships firing together could overwhelm even the best defenses. And at 2:52 p.m., the Iranian coast erupted with missile launches as 8 large anti-ship missiles streaked low over the sea toward USS Mason, with white vapor trails cutting through the blue sky. While at the same time, the 12 fast attack boats fired 24 more missiles, and the 3 corvettes added 6 heavy missiles of their own, meaning that 38 missiles were now racing toward a single American destroyer in what became the biggest missile attack on a U.S. ship in generations. And Captain Mitchell gave the order to engage as the ship's automated defense system instantly began tracking every incoming missile and launching interceptor rockets that streaked upward in fast white lines and exploded in the air as they destroyed several Iranian missiles. But there were simply too many, coming too fast. So the ship's close-range defense guns opened fire as well, spraying thousands of rounds per minute into the sky to stop anything that got too close, and bright explosions flashed around the ship as fragments fell into the sea. Yet despite all of this, one missile still managed to break through and struck the front of the ship, causing a violent explosion, fire, and thick black smoke that could be seen even from the Iranian coastline. And moments later, another missile hit the rear of the destroyer, causing more damage and injuries. But USS Mason stayed in the fight as Captain Mitchell ordered a counterattack, and 8 cruise missiles launched from the ship in bright flames, each one programmed to strike the Iranian missile batteries along the coast, while at the same time the 12 Iranian attack boats rushed closer to within a few kilometers and opened heavy fire again, all of it visible in the clear daylight. And the USS Mason turned its large deck gun toward the sea and began firing powerful shells toward the attackers as the battle reached its most violent moment. The first hostile speedboat shattered into pieces as a direct hit turned it into flying metal and smoke that everyone could see. The second burst apart in a fireball. The third was burning and drifting, but 9 more were still rushing forward while 3 larger warships closed in. And at that moment, Captain Mira, commanding the destroyer Guardian, sent an urgent message saying the ship had been hit twice. Fires were spreading, black smoke was rising high into the sky, and enemy missiles and boats were everywhere. So help was needed right now. And within seconds a reply came that air support was already on the way and that the Guardian only had to hold on a little longer because powerful backup was coming fast. And then 8 high-speed strike jets roared overhead through the clear blue sky, so low and loud that everyone on the water could see and hear them as the pilots instantly spotted the damaged destroyer still firing back, enemy boats swarming around it, and missiles streaking across the air. And the jet leader ordered all units to attack with full force, focusing on the 3 large enemy warships and the fast boats trying to get close. And a storm of long-range sea target missiles was released, leaving bright trails in the sunlight as they flew straight toward their targets, while the enemy ships tried to turn and escape, but it was already too late, because all 3 were struck almost at the same time in massive daylight explosions that ripped them apart and sent burning wreckage into the sea. And then the jets swept down again, using their cannons to hit the smaller boats one by one, turning them into fire and smoke until there were none left still moving. While at the same time the destroyer's own long-range missiles reached the coastal launch sites that had fired earlier, smashing them with perfect accuracy in a series of powerful blasts that wiped out radar stations, command bunkers, and missile launchers in just seconds. But the response did not stop there, because 2 heavy bombers that had been circling high above the clouds now received full permission to strike, opening their bays and dropping dozens of guided bombs that fell silently through the clear air before slamming into every major enemy naval base, storage area, and control center along the coastline, setting off huge chain reactions that lit up the horizon with fire and collapsing buildings. And while all of this was happening, 3 silent underwater attack vessels suddenly broke the surface of the ocean, revealing themselves for the first time as they launched a final wave of long-range strike missiles toward the enemy's main naval headquarters. their launch flames glowing against the blue water as the weapons raced away toward their targets. And by the end of these few violent minutes, the enemy's entire sea power in the region had been shattered, their ships sunk, their launch sites destroyed, their command centers wiped out, and the burning sky and smoking coastline showed that the balance of power had completely shifted in a single overwhelming wave of force. The Revolutionary Guard Navy Headquarters building, the central command facility that coordinated the entire ambush, ceased to exist in a chain of massive explosions. The blast ripped through the structure floor by floor until nothing remained but rubble and fire. A thick black smoke cloud rose into the sky, visible for more than 60 kilometers away. The Iranian admiral who had ordered the attack was killed instantly. His entire command staff died with him. Computers, communications equipment, and classified files were buried under concrete and twisted steel. The nerve center of Iranian naval operations in the region was wiped out in seconds. At 3:15 p.m., the pressure intensified. 16 additional F/A-18 Super Hornets arrived from USS Eisenhower, accompanied by 4 EA-18 Growlers, specialized electronic warfare aircraft. They appeared clearly in the open sky, impossible to miss. The Growlers immediately activated their systems, jamming every Iranian military radar within a 200-kilometer radius. Air defense screens across southern Iran went dark. Missile batteries could not lock targets. Commanders could not see incoming aircraft. Iranian defenses were completely blind and helpless. With the skies fully controlled, the F divided by a -18s began methodical destruction of all remaining Iranian naval assets. Patrol boats sitting in port were struck one by one with precision-guided bombs. Each hit was clean, deliberate, and lethal. Storage facilities were obliterated. Maintenance yards were flattened. Fuel depots detonated into towering fireballs, visible from 50 kilometers away in broad daylight. Satellite imagery captured every strike in real time. There was no ambiguity and no room for denial. By 3:25 p.m., the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Navy in the Strait of Hormuz region no longer functioned as a fighting force. 12 fast attack boats were sunk, 3 corvettes destroyed, 6 coastal missile batteries eliminated, and the naval headquarters completely erased. Every major facility burned. Every command node was gone. The destruction was total and clearly documented. But the operation still was not finished. At 3:28 p.m., the civilian tanker Pacific Endeavor, which had remained quietly in the background throughout the engagement, suddenly revealed its purpose. 12 U.S. Marines emerged from concealed compartments below deck in full view of the coastline. These were Force Recon operators, fully armed and equipped. They had been covertly embedded aboard the tanker in case Iran attempted to seize it. 2 rigid-hull inflatable boats were launched immediately, engines roaring as they cut across the water toward the Iranian coast. The movement was visible to anyone watching. There was no attempt to hide. Their target was an Iranian Revolutionary Guard coastal observation post, the facility responsible for coordinating missile activity earlier in the conflict. At 3:35 p.m., the Marines hit the beach. The assault happened in full daylight. Breaching charges blew doors open. Flashbangs detonated. Rooms were cleared with speed and precision. 8 Iranian personnel were captured alive. Intelligence files were seized. Computer systems were smashed and rendered useless. Hard drives were destroyed on site. By 3:39 p.m., the Marines were back in their boats and moving away from the shoreline. The raid was over. Extraction was clean. The captured intelligence was secure. Iranian forces observed everything, but were unable to respond in time. Then came the final strike. At 3:39 p.m., USS Mason, damaged but still combat-capable, launched her remaining 8 Tomahawk cruise missiles. The launches were clearly visible against the afternoon sky. Their target was the Iranian Military Command Complex in Bandar Abbas. At 3:42 p.m., that complex was destroyed. A massive explosion rolled across the city. The final command structure coordinating regional operations vanished in fire and debris. By 3:45 p.m., the Battle of Hormuz was over. Every major action occurred in clear daylight. Every strike was recorded. USS Mason survived. Pacific Endeavour remained undamaged. All 12 Marines were extracted safely, carrying captured intelligence. Iranian losses were overwhelming. 12 attack boats sunk, 3 corvettes destroyed, 6 missile batteries eliminated, naval headquarters obliterated, 57 facilities destroyed, and approximately 320 casualties. Every loss was visible, every impact documented, every claim verifiable. Within hours, Iran attempted damage control. State media claimed victory. They announced that Iranian forces had repelled American aggression and forced a U.S. destroyer to retreat. None of it was true. Satellite imagery told a different story. Crystal-clear daylight photos showed 12 Iranian boats on the seafloor, 3 corvettes destroyed, 6 missile sites reduced to smoking craters, the naval headquarters reduced to rubble, and 57 facilities erased from the map. All of this was clearly visible in high-resolution daylight imagery. The Pentagon later released selected photos to the public. This was not classified combat footage, just clean aftermath images taken under perfect afternoon light. The pictures showed Iranian corvettes capsized, naval buildings still burning, and radar installations completely destroyed. The message to Tehran was simple and unmistakable. This is what happens when you attack American vessels. The global reaction was immediate. Headlines around the world reported that Iran's attack on a U.S. destroyer ended in catastrophic defeat and that the Revolutionary Guard Navy had been crippled in just 47 minutes. What Iran planned as a humiliating ambush instead became a decisive American counterstrike. USS Mason, though damaged, remained afloat and was later towed to Bahrain for repairs. Every crew member survived, and the ship returned to active service 6 weeks later. Captain Sarah Mitchell was awarded the Navy Cross for commanding her ship under overwhelming attack, and the 12 Marines who raided the Iranian coastal observation post each received Bronze Stars for capturing critical intelligence during a daylight combat mission. That intelligence later revealed Iran had been planning the ambush for 3 weeks, fully convinced they could sink a U.S. destroyer, seize the tanker, and force America into negotiations. Instead, Iran lost 320 personnel, 15 major vessels, 6 missile batteries, its naval headquarters, and its entire regional command structure, all destroyed in a single afternoon. The strategic impact was enormous. For years, Iran had threatened to close the Strait of Hormuz and control the global oil supply to gain political leverage. Operation Iron Passage proved those threats were a fantasy. Iran attacked one American destroyer using everything it had in the region: 38 missiles, 12 attack boats, 3 corvettes, and 6 coastal missile batteries, all launched in broad daylight and fully documented. The result was clear. The destroyer was damaged but survived, while the entire Iranian naval force in the strait was wiped out in 47 minutes. The carrier strike group never even had to move in close, as F divided by a -18S from USS Eisenhower handled the fight. Regional powers were watching closely. The UAE increased cooperation with the U.S. Fifth Fleet, Bahrain expanded naval base access, and Saudi Arabia requested integrated air defense training. Most importantly, global oil markets barely reacted. Prices stayed stable because the world understood one thing: the United States would keep the strait open no matter what. Iran learned a hard lesson. Attacking American warships does not close the Strait of Hormuz. It gets your Navy destroyed in daylight, with the whole world watching. At 2:52 p.m., Iran launched its largest anti-ship missile attack in decades against USS Mason. At 3:39 p.m., just 47 minutes later, 15 Iranian vessels were gone, 6 missile batteries destroyed, 57 facilities burned, 320 casualties recorded, and the American mission completed successfully. USS Mason was still fighting. The tanker Pacific Endeavour completed its passage, and the Marines returned with captured intelligence. Iran tried to close the strait. Instead, it opened itself to total destruction. This was Operation Iron Passage, 47 minutes, one afternoon, total Iranian defeat and complete American victory.